me, March 18th meeting of the Brainerd Planning Commission to order. And roll call, please.
Duval.
Present.
Gorham.
Here.
Grissula.
Here.
Peterson.
Yes.
Powell. Erickson.
Here. All right. Pledge of Allegiance. Hey, can you read us? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, it leads us up to looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
And a second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good, we have an agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the draft minutes from February 18th.
So moved, Duval. Second, Ursula.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Excellent. That gets us all the way up to public forum. This is time allocated for matters that are not on tonight's agenda. And if anybody would like to come up to speak, I'm going to open the public forum at 6:01. If you're online, you're welcome to speak as well. Anybody clamoring to speak online, Max?
How do they do that?
Oh, I think I can look at this little thing here. I think they do, they raise their, number 5 raises their hand, right? Yeah, and 6 unmutes you. But if we have nobody there, I'm pretty confident to close the public hearing at 6:01. And that will lead us to number 7, unfinished business. James, could you talk a little bit about the shoreland ordinance update, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Planning Commission directed staff to work with the Minnesota DNR to investigate if lot widths as well as sizes are negotiable for non-riparian sewered lots in the traditional neighborhood and contemporary neighborhood zoning districts. The Minnesota DNR recommended the staff perform a survey of properties located in the Shoreland District prior to making a request. In addition, staff also requested an impervious surface increase from 25% to 40% in this area as well. The full request letter is attached, as well as the DNR request for additional regulations as part of that negotiation. The DNR is requesting that in order to approve the concessions for non-riparian lots, riparian lots that would potentially alter or increase their impervious surface on their property would be subject to a stormwater plan for properties over 15% impervious surface, and then a buffer for properties over 20% impervious surface. And then for riprap, also a required buffer, and then riprap can only be installed when vegetative methods are not possible. Staff have been working with Jake from the DNR, and he is here to present tonight about natural buffers and their impact to overall water quality. And I'd like to thank him for coming tonight. Staff is looking for the Commission to consider the DNR request and direct staff to include the requirements of the DNR or redraft the ordinance to meet the state minimum requirements. And with that, I will turn it over to Jake.
I think I go to this mic, right? This is the one. This is my first time at the Planning Commission for Brainerd, so it's good to see you all, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. I am Jake Free. I am the area hydrologist for the Minnesota DNR. My office is here in Brainerd, and my work area is in Crow Wing and Aiken County. So I work and live in this community. I'm not driving up from St. Paul. So I'm happy to be here today. Let me start by saying as well, on a funnier note, this is the first time I've ever had background music before the start of a meeting. I used to work for Crow Wing County as the Planning and Zoning Administrator. I wish we would have done that. That probably would have calmed things down a bit. But with that, we'll get going. I think we have, there's the PowerPoint up front there. I just want to talk a little bit about the implementation flexibility that is being requested by the city of Brainerd. In general, all of the, I'll call them 4 major requests that the city has seem pretty good. I laid that on my letter that they seem practical, they seem reasonable. You guys did a great survey, a good study to see how this makes sense. So we really appreciate that. Also appreciate the work being done to say, hey, here's some of the flexibilities and the higher standards we're thinking about to kind of offset those lesser standards over here. And my talk today is just a little bit about why I had a little bit of a response letter to, let's see if we can move the needle towards those riparian properties and why is that a thing with the state of Minnesota? So that's kind of what I wanted to frame out today. So just to start, we've lost about 40 to 50% of our natural shorelines in the state of Minnesota since we started recording that. So we know that by remote sensing and by surveying the lakes themselves and the shoreline. So we have some good technology to kind of survey how that looks. So we're already kind of 40% loss. If we don't protect those natural shorelines, we might lose water quality in the near future. Next slide. Is there a tipping point? So a bunch of studies have shown that once we get a watershed that's more than 25% developed, meaning losing their natural conditions, we see a significant increase in phosphorus and a significant trend towards potential water quality decline. You can kind of see that up on the slide. Once you hit that red 25, you start to see an increase. So that's an issue. Next slide. What happens when we remove shoreline vegetation? Because that's a critical component, that's surface water quality. When we have shorelines that are primarily lawns or armored, for example, what happens is soil washes in, all of the nutrients like phosphorus bind to the soil, and it brings it out into the lake. It causes eutrophication, algal blooms, and there's a spiraling sort of food chain effect. I'm not going to go into that too much today, but just note that when we have our near shore environments, those riparian environments are critical towards protecting the water quality of our lakes. So let's go to the next slide. Water quality reduce. No one wants the water to look like this. Next slide. I'm going to rifle through these fairly quickly for time's sake. Study that was done in Wisconsin showed that when you have very small runoff, very small phosphorus input and sediment inputs from those natural shorelines, you didn't have hardly any moving the needle on water quality, very high. As soon as we moved to a lawn environment or sort of that half-developed environment, there was 4 times the amount of sediment inputs. And by the time we got to a fully developed shoreline with a lot of armoring, we had 18 times the amount of sediments, 7 to 9 times phosphorus, and so forth and so forth. Next slide. All right, so 1 pound of phosphorus produces 500 pounds of algae. If we take a look at a large plat or a large development area, if you have 100 lots, 0.2 pounds per lot, 5 tons of algae. And that's just coming from developed situations. Next slide. This is what we would love to have some of our shorelines look like, these natural shorelines. We know that that's not going to happen quite that deep or to the extent of all of our lots, but if we can move the needle towards these kinds of conditions, we can increase our habitat, we can provide some good stormwater benefits, reduce our nutrient loading, and still have it look aesthetically good as well. Next slide. So the problem we have, it's not a city, this is the problem in Brainerd, but sort of statewide. The problem we have is we have a lot of lawns to the lake, a lot of hard armoring of our shorelines, and while that does tend to prevent erosion in some areas, it's being used in a manner a lot that is creating these unintended consequences. Lack of fish habitat, a lack of habitat, and some other issues. Next slide. It also can affect loons as well. Loons are more likely to nest away from shoreline development, and so this conversation about water quality relates to loons as well. Next slide. Fish habitat is destroyed when we have a lot of riprap. It's unfavorable for small fish and things like that. They prefer natural cobbles and things like that. So that's that cascading effect. Next slide. Often we'll see a presumably stable shoreline at times, even though it is a lawn. What we've seen, next slide, is a conversion from this to typically a rip-wrapped situation, a lot of hard armoring when there are other choices to be made for natural vegetation, bioengineering, things like that. So next slide. So we have, for example, Gilbert Lake, which part of that is in the city of Brainerd's jurisdiction for planning and zoning. the Mississippi River Brainerd One Watershed, One Plan, Comprehensive Watershed Plan. There's actually a Gilbert Lake implementation plan. And this was a plan that was vetted by many counties, many cities, a lot of partners involved with the creation of that plan. Next slide. And right in that plan, specifically for Gilbert Lake, is shoreline restoration to try and get those natural buffers to reduce phosphorus loading, and get stormwater management plans for those impervious surfaces that are more than 15%. So it's kind of dovetailing our overall goal there. Next slide. So what's the point of my brief 4-minute introduction to what's really driving the water quality issues in this state? It's near shore environmental issues. Yes, there are some agricultural issues as well, but particularly in the city of Brainerd, where you have your lakes and rivers, the offsets we would love to look for is offsetting those riparian properties, particularly on promoting natural shorelines and reducing stormwater runoff from entering our lakes and rivers on those lots. So next slide. Before I wrap up, some of the things I talked about in my letter, and I don't know if you guys have read it or not, but basically talked about those performance-based triggers. So if you pull a permit and you breach an impervious threshold, you would be required to have some sort of buffer at a certain depth, or have a stormwater management plan that doesn't need to be designed by an engineer, but sort of that idea that you have an intentional plan on your permit plan for whatever you're pulling to sort of retain that water before it gets to the lake. So really appreciate all the work that I've had with the early coordination with James on talking through these issues. I'm happy to take any questions. I know I went fairly quick. I wanted to be cognizant of everyone's time here. If there are any questions about anything I said, I can take them, or otherwise, Mr. Chair, I can go back and sit and listen. It's whatever you'd like.
Mr. Freed, that was great. I think you can stay right there. I suspect we have a few questions from the group. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Freed?
Mr. Chair, I have one.
Please.
When a permit is pulled in the city of Brainerd, do you also look at that then if it's on the shorelines?
I do not, as part of a standard practice. Now, variances, right? I get published for the variances, and I will look at those. But it's not been a standard practice that I do that. There are actually some smaller cities that do send them to me because they only have like 2 a year. So they'll slide them to me just to see, but not the city of Brainerd.
Other questions? Mike, please.
Yeah, thank you. And Jake, thanks for being here tonight to kind of address the questions. One big question is, are your recommendations firm, or do we have an opportunity to continue negotiating on these?
We're here to be a partner. We're here to help, not be a bureaucratic obstructionist organization. So we're always talking. So that's just ideas I'm throwing at you to get the ball rolling about things that have worked in other communities. I did not just kind of like go in my basement and say, this would be interesting. We looked at other communities, what's worked there, what's practical, looked at my own experience, but certainly there's still part of the conversation for moving the needle, for sure.
I think, when I look, I see 4 key recommendations that you're saying, and I think it makes sense to, if you're going to concede your standards for something a little more lenient that the city's looking for, and understanding that, we're dealing with a landscape that's been platted since as early 1887 in that northeast Brainerd from Washington Street up to N, and to the east in the 20s and the 30s, further north up on Rice Lake, it's 1950. So we've had all of this platting and development prior to the shoreline standards ever coming into play here, and I understand you grandfather those in, if you would, that they're conforming or legal nonconformities or whatever you have. But it's fair to trade off to say if the state is gonna make concessions, the city has to show how you're providing better protection in a different way that's maybe more aggressive than the state standards. And I think you're providing us 4 examples here. One of those is to use some of the suggested offsetting higher standards that Director Krombeck has proposed to all of the riparian parcels, not just certain ones. You've talked, are suggesting that any riprap applications above the ordinary high water mark, in other words, outside of the state jurisdiction, you couple that permit approval with some sort of a shoreline buffer. You know, I'm all over those. I think those are, fair requests of the city. What I'm getting a little bit struggling here is, you know, starting to require certain actions, you know, for the one for stormwater management plans triggering at 15% impervious cover. That's 40% lower than the state standard of 25%, right? That imperviousness, the state standard's 25,
Right.
isn't it?
Yep.
You know, so we're making a pretty big leap down, and then for over the 20%, you know, putting in a no-mow buffer. And I appreciate the presentation that you made here, and it's not lost on me that water quality gains come with well-stabilized and vegetated shorelines. If we look at the city parcels on Gilbert Lake, I think we have like a couple dozen parcels that actually front the lake. And if you look at those on the aerial photography, the shoreline for most all of those is wooded. The trees are there. I don't know the depth of the vegetation, but it has those attributes that I think you're looking for. I'm not sure how many of those are exceed the 15 or the 20% imperviousness. That's something that Director Krombeck might know. There are some that are pretty well denuded.
Yeah.
You know, deep lots with basically, you know, a fairway down to the, and there's room for improvement there. And what I'd like to propose to you is that, you know, for Gilbert Lake, I don't know that the 24 lots on Gilbert are really driving water quality trend there. There's a trend, and I think that's alarming. We should be concerned about that. We should also recognize that, you know, there's a lot, you know, another 2/3 or 3/4 of the lake is developed in another jurisdiction. You have probably some internal loading from shallow water boating going on outside of, you know, the city of Brainerd's jurisdiction. You've got transportation infrastructure with county and state highways there that catching stormwater, directing it to Gilbert Lake, you know, and outside of city of Brainerd's jurisdiction. So I'm thinking that if you were to apply these standards, even at the levels you are, I don't think you affect anything for the city of Brainerd parcels there. What Brainerd does bring is municipal sewer capturing treatment. And with these super sandy soils, even though a septic system may be performing and pumped on a regular basis, the cumulative, you know, drainage and travel of phosphorus down through the soil in these sandy soils is going to end up towards the lake. And I think that's a strength that we bring to the Gilbert, is that phosphorus capture stuff. We're handling a big chunk of that through the lots that we have there that are connected to city sewer. If I were to look over at Rice Lake, that's the other body of water. That one doesn't seem to be trending from what I see in the RAPS reports, and I've not been able, I didn't look at the implementation strategies for that lake. It's a little bit lower a priority, but it's got 4.5 million acres of contributing watershed to 418 acres of water surface, so 10,000 acres of watershed per acre of water. That's a lot, and so, you know, putting these buffers in is probably not impacting the phosphorus loading to Rice Lake. And so I would challenge you to think about the outcome not being to put stormwater buffers or water filtration buffers, but the focus that you highlight in that vanishing shorelines issue paper, that's a solid document, and it really portrays the importance of what's happening to our 40 to 50% of our shorelines across the state. And I think the piece that catches my eye there is the loss of the habitat. And I think in that document it talks about, you know, the upland habitat for some of the amphibians and such, and then that transition into the water, things like trees and woody habitat falling into the water provides that benefit. And I would say that really, if we're to look at buffers, we should look at them as a habitat feature and not really for Brainerd as a water quality piece. And I think that would really be something we would do outside of the shoreland ordinance. You know, we could do that as a design standard like we do for parking lots. You might say that we need a particular level of screening, for example. You can put trees and shrubs and things in, and our staff are clever enough, I think, to be able to come up with a way to maybe implement that. That gets us the shoreline stabilizing in that way. But you also, at the Department of Natural Resources, have authority for stuff that goes in the water. So that's, you know, the riprap permits on the water side are the lakeward of that ordinary high water mark. And you've got aquatic vegetation permits where you're authorizing a level of removal of vegetation and things, and then sand blankets and things. And so if we're going to try and make an attempt to address some of these, I'm not sure that we want to tackle that in the shoreline ordinance piece for the city. I think it's a multi-jurisdictional thing. It's the city, it's the Department of Natural Resources, it's probably Board of Water and Soil Resources, the local SWCDs, the conservation community. There were a lot of partners listed in the Vanishing Shorelines brochure. And I think the city could use their resources in creative and constructive ways to be able to do education on the value of returning shoreline buffers and habitat to our nearshore areas. And we could target and develop probably a multi-jurisdictional plan for Rice Lake, if there's not one developed right now, that gets at that we work on outside of the context of the shoreline ordinance, and that we leave the impervious thresholds and things are really about water quality. And if we were to point to some of the examples where other communities are doing this, well, it's, you know, again, we've got sewer and stormwater, sanitary sewer and stormwater infrastructure in place, which is different from the city of 50 Lakes, different from the city of Niswoos, different from our neighboring counties. So I think the intent is good, but I would change the focus from water quality, because I don't know that we would be able to show the public that for the effort that we're putting into putting buffers here, that you're going to move the needle on phosphorus. And do you have thoughts on that, or is that a line of reasoning that you'd be open to exploring with our staff?
I'm always happy to continue to chat with the staff about it, and I appreciate your thoughts on that. I don't have any like rebuttals right now. That I wrote down a few things. Yeah, no, I think there's just multiple benefits to stormwater and buffers, as you illustrated, besides water quality. And so I do know that the city has a the stormwater management plan. Typically on the lake side, on riparian lots, though, things are either going to run towards the street or run towards the lake. So they'll either hit a stormwater plan or a buffer. So that's the idea on that a little bit. But yeah, absolutely, I really appreciate the feedback and your thoughts on this. Where we were coming from was an emphasis on what really moves the needle on water quality is when you get closer to the shore, putting higher standards in place there rather than further away from the shore, which also means there's a little bit more of a pinch point for folks about, oh, I got to do something a little bit different. So it was more about being the most effective the closer we get to the lake, because that is where as you know, most of the critical habitat interface happens is right there. It's not 500 feet away. I mean, I'm not saying 500 feet doesn't mean anything, but it just really ramps up. So I just wanted to let everyone know that's where we're coming from, is trying to emphasize that's where you get the most protection. So I appreciate your thoughts, though.
And thank you, and I agree that I do not want to discount the importance of the stormwater, and that's where I think your first recommendation of those offsetting standards requiring, stormwater plans, and it's very, helpful clarification from you that it doesn't have to be a highly engineered stormwater plan, but, so that's helpful as well to say, what is the degree of rigor we want on these, but we want to have people thinking about how water flows off of their roof, how it flows off of their driveway, how it flows off of their accessory structures, and how do you manage that before or if it hits the lake. And I'm solidly on board with that, so I'm not saying we dismiss that, but I think as we think about vegetation, buffers and things, I would like to empower our staff to say, let's find a way to fit that in a different part of our ordinance than the shoreline that gets at a design standard and an aesthetic that we feel we apply to Brainerd. And we can describe, I think, about planting trees and whatever to get those same sorts of benefits, but more focusing on getting the habitat piece in place. So thank you, Jake. I appreciate your listening. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Excellent. Yes, Tad, please.
Thank you, Jake. Question on, you just kind of brought up the 15% impervious triggering the stormwater management plan. Kind of to that point of, you mentioning that doesn't have to have a lot of engineering rigor, can you just describe what level you would be looking for? As council and planning commission member, we'll get that question. This is going to, cause me this much cost, and can you kind of just paint that picture of what you would be looking for, or what that might
Yeah.
cost even?
So to help out with that, and I'll go there with the buffer. So to both of those, the stormwater management plan is not an engineered quality plan. It literally can be a property owner, with the help of staff, because there are guides out there on how to do it very simply. Circles and arrows of where are you intentionally shedding your water. And they can just draw it out, and then staff would review it to make sure that makes sense. Because sometimes that causes people to go, I've never really thought about that. Why? And then the answer is, well, if you just put the gutters on and direct it not over there, but over there, most of the time, my experience has been when we did the similar thing with Crow Wing County, is that was the switch. That was it. It wasn't hiring an engineer or spending a lot of time on that. And a lot of times those stormwater features are already on the property. So it's not like they have to go excavate or create these crazy designs. It's taking already existing features on the shoreline or on the hill or a dip and just making sure you're using the already natural features there and intentionally putting things in those places rather than building infrastructure and, all these other things that are more MnDOT related, if you will. Same thing with the buffers. We would not be saying you need to get in there and do a native planting of $10,000 worth of X, Y, and Z. It's simply provide at least 8 inches, stop mowing on a percentage of the shoreline. It wouldn't be the whole shoreline. And let it grow a little bit further to capture that stormwater, provide a little bit more habitat, a little bit more shading. That's kind of the angle. It's just move that needle a little bit. Is that helpful?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that does help. You couldn't help yourself, you had to take a jab at MnDOT.
No, I'm sure at MnDOT, they've got great stormwater ponds. Wonderful stormwater ponds, yes.
Justin, any thoughts?
I don't have any questions for Jake.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Just a couple things. One of my pet peeves are words that we use. And I think when we're in a certain culture, in a certain workplace, we throw out these words and other people are going, what? Define riparian.
A lot that's literally on the lake, we'll call it.
Lake or river. Any
Lake or
difference?
river, excuse me, a water body. Yep.
Okay, no
Yep.
difference there?
Yep.
Good. That helps because I think I always thought riparian just referred to river.
Yeah.
And it refers to all of it. I think one of the things that we have to look for is allowances for unique terrain. Do you have any thoughts about the riverbank in Brainerd? There are points in the riverbank in Brainerd that are incredibly steep.
Yeah.
and that it's hard to understand how we could prevent erosion without riprap or things like this. Specifically over in West Brainerd, there was the washout. Are you familiar with the washout that happened? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what are your thoughts with that in terms of the response, and what can we learn to prevent this from happening again? Because these things tend to happen over and over again in certain areas in our town.
RipRap is a tool that has its place. That was one of them, and there are many tools. By the way, I have not been you go to Jake and he says no to RipRap every time. Sometimes you get that label, but we have allowed RipRap in many places where there is a demonstrated need. Too often we've seen it just on a fear
Reflexive.
that there's erosion, but there's objectively not, and there could have been a cheaper, simpler, better habitat choice for that. So. If implemented, this wouldn't be no to all riprap. It's going to be that demonstrated need where you see that erosion, where the wind fetch is big, or like you said, steep slopes where there's no practical and feasible way you could do any bioengineering. That's just going to fail.
The river's moving.
Absolutely. So the other thing with buffers, same thing. There's going to be a lot of people that don't need a buffer because they already have it. So you just walk away. So it's more fixing those areas that are hanging out there that may need it rather than everybody gets it. So
Got it. I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but we make reference to, in our packet, we have a lot of information about Crow Wing County and their approach. Do you have any thoughts on the approach that Crow Wing County has been using?
Well, as you probably know, I've worked for Crow Wing for many years,
Okay.
And it seemed to work great because they have, I'd say, 1,000 permits a year. So there's no time to go through a stormwater management plan for 17 hours. You need to review them quickly, make sure they make sense, and get them out. If there's going to be a buffer, you need to look at it very quickly and get out. So from an implementation and a customer satisfaction standpoint, I can speak from professional experience that we did not have a lot of, we do not like this, get this out of the ordinance.
Right.
Again, that's not the city of Brainerd, and I don't want to, I hate comparing, it's a unique place, but from an implementation and a practicality standpoint, we seem to have good buy-in when I was there. That's as best as I can tell you.
So it'd be safe to assume that if we turn to Crow Wing as a model for some of the solutions here, we'd probably be turning to a good place if we turn to Crow Wing County and kind of look at some of the programs they have in place.
I would-
rapid response program and some of those things.
Yep, I would think you'd have a known implementation system that's already worked out any bugs they've been doing it since 2011. And there's other cities that have done it as well, but certainly uniformly in some areas on shorelines is a good thing between cities and counties, because then when you look at a lake, we don't look at it chopped up. The lake is just the lake, right?
Like Gilbert Lake that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
we want a little bit more uniformity on how habitat can be expected and not change just because you cross the city line, right? So that's that watershed management.
Lastly, generically, what would you say, what is the water quality of the Mississippi? Do you think it's heading in a positive direction or going the other direction? What's a generic thought on that?
Well, there are goals to reduce phosphorus loading on the Mississippi in general, and there are goals to get that down. The issue is there's so many entities, so many agencies, and so many cities, they all have to play together to get that done. So what's my answer? Generally speaking, in the first 500 miles of the Mississippi River, the water quality is good. Not shockingly, as you collect more information and move south, the water quality tends to decline. So we are very fortunate up here to have good water quality, but we want that trend not to decline. We want it to stable or go up. And that's really what I'm talking about here is not, we have some bad water quality. We have great water quality, but how can we keep that from declining? That's really the risk.
Very good.
I apologize, I do have one other question for Jake. Jake, you mentioned the Brainerd Mississippi One Watershed One plan. My understanding is that there's additional funding that comes either to jurisdictions who participate in that plan and/or property owners. Would there be opportunities for property owners to apply for funds through that plan or the city to offset some costs that may result from, if we go down this path?
All right, so there are funds that are allocated on a biannual basis. There is a soil and water conservation district that's kind of the fiscal agent for that. And the monies that come from watershed planning get into the millions of dollars. Now, that's for the whole watershed, not for the city of Brainerd, but are there, if someone is doing an activity that fits within the priorities of that watershed and that lake, then there's the possibility. The only thing that I would say is sometimes if it's a regulatory item and you're required to do it, sometimes they look at that as a required item rather than a volunteer activity. But there may be some opportunities. Although I will say I don't see a lot of serious infrastructure, or like I said, you don't have to plant native plants to implement this. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jake? All right, I'm going to thank you for now. We may have another question or two, but thank you for the presentation. That was very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Planning
Very
Commission.
good. At this point, we need to point our staff in a direction. We have, I think it's kind of spelled out, we have a couple different directions we could go. And James?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of reiterate those directions again. Either number one would be to kind of accept the request of the DNR, implement those, and we could bring it to a public hearing at the next meeting. Another option would be to not accept those and just meet the minimum requirements for those non-riparian lot sizes. Those are and the impervious surface. Those are some of the big concessions we're looking at. Or a third option could be perhaps direct staff to work with the DNR for another month and kind of review things as well.
All right, sounds like we have three options sitting out there. Yes, Mike?
Finish your thought, or?
No, I'm ready.
Question for staff here. Do we have a timeline we need to get this done, after which bad things happen?
So obviously we did receive a letter saying that we need to update it, and probably be more of a question for Jake if it would be okay to continue to negotiate for one more month.
Yes, Jake, come on up. Thank you.
Well, the city of Brainerd has been working in good faith and a joy to work with, so I don't go there when we're making excellent progress. It's only when we're having really big issues that we go, well, we got to get this done. So you guys have been great. I don't have any problem with continuing to work on this and making everybody happy. So
Good.
that works.
Excellent.
Yep.
Very good. Satisfies your question. Thank you. Other thoughts?
Question for James. James, we've got significant shoreline of our own as a city there. Would Lum Park on Rice Lake be subject to the same requirements? And are there things that the city could do to perhaps offset that would be beneficial for the residents?
Certainly park planning could institute buffers. I've seen that in other cities where they've done rain gardens or buffers and put signage out there to promote those type of things. So that's something that the Parks Department could consider. I would think the size of Lum Park and the amount of green space in there probably isn't even approaching 15% impervious would be my guess. So they would be subject to those same standards, but impervious surface wise, it probably isn't approaching for a requirement.
Thank you.
Good question. Other questions or thoughts? Otherwise, I'll be looking for, yes, please.
I just have a thought on the buffer. I know we've got an ordinance on the books for mowing your lawn. So James, do you have any idea how that would interface with that ordinance, or if that ordinance would potentially have to be changed to allow for the buffer? And I mean, I guess how much of a buffer could be subjective up to the property owner, and how would we account for that?
So those are things that I could continue to work with Jake on, maybe refining that. Maybe it's not exactly what Crow Wing County uses. I could look into potentially, is there another spot in the code and the design standards? My one concern on that is I do know the legislature right now in Minnesota is looking to get rid of a lot of the design standards that the city can put in place. I'm guessing, if that would pass, that's something that would just be removed out of there. So, again, that would be my one concern about putting it somewhere else other than the shoreline code.
Thank you.
Interesting point, yeah. Other thoughts? Otherwise, I think we should make a motion tonight. And Mike, do you have anything, or? Because I think we have a few different directions to go. My personal thought on it is I like what Crow Wing County has done. I think moving towards adopting some of their ideas would be beneficial. I think it's such a privilege for us to have so much water in this area, to have so much access to it, and with that, of course, comes a great responsibility to take care of it. And so I would encourage myself, I'd be in favor of either the second or the first or the third option. The second option is the minimal. I wouldn't be in favor of that. I like the first and third option. One being what you would just accept the DNR standards, and three being you negotiate further with the DNR. Correct? Am I understanding this correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, so I see three paths out there, and I'm certainly looking for motions or discussion if we're not ready for motion yet.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mike.
I would make the motion for the option 3 to continue negotiations with the Minnesota DNR with specific outcomes. Perhaps looking at the thresholds for requirements of some of those certain actions itemized here, and empower our staff to navigate with general guidance and let them find a path that works for us.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. James, do you think you have enough to work with there?
Yep, I should have enough to work with.
Very good. All right. Any other discussion on this? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. We have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Free. I appreciate your time tonight. All right. That moves us on. We are up to, we are on 8A. We're going to consider a conditional use permit amendment for the dermatology clinic that we talked about last month at 1410 and 1424 TC Drive. James?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So River Birch Investments has requested an amendment to the original CUP that was heard last month for additional off-street parking spaces. There was a miscommunication that the approved CUP would allow the applicant to exceed the maximum number of off-street parking spaces without restrictions. The plan that was provided would essentially kind of lock them in. So the applicant has pretty much finalized the civil plans and is requesting 90 total spaces and has attached a letter to provide reasoning as well as a new site plan. The footprint main entrance, which is the upper level, the one that I used last time was the lower level, but really the upper level is the main entrance, would allow for 52 spaces without a CUP. And again, a CUP may be granted to exceed the allowable amount for multi-level buildings. I do want to note the total surface area for the building, counting the first and second floor, is 12,750 square feet, which would equate to 86 spaces if we were to use the total square footage. Also want to note that parking lots of this size are consistent with surrounding properties. FedEx is essentially across the street, which has a large parking lot as well. Also do want to note that this property is not in a walkable, bikeable area of the city, and TC Drive isn't really designed for off-street parking. It's designed for semi-use. There's no sidewalks. So off-street parking is certainly important in this area. So the applicant is here. So staff does recommend to first hold a public hearing and then recommend approval of the conditional use permit amendment that allows for 90 off-street parking spaces. And I can answer any questions.
Questions for James?
I have one for you, James.
Please.
Why don't we have a set maximum for parking spots? Because we have impervious soils in there. You know, yeah, let's just leave it at that for the question.
So yeah, so when we did take a look at this, about a year and a half ago when we were going through parking lot sizes, some of our major concerns were our downtown area where we have abundant off-street parking and really not wanting to see an expansion of parking lots in areas that we want to see density and buildings in. I would say the industrial area was a little bit of a less concern. It wasn't really talked about as much. Again, we have the TN2 district, our downtown districts, commercial corridor districts where we're wanting to see that density, and that's really where the discussion came about.
But we have minimums also, correct?
We got rid of most of our minimums. Our downtown does have some very low threshold minimums.
Okay.
So for instance, multi-level buildings, commercial tenants have to have one parking space if they were to do a new building. Apartment units have to have one parking space. So it's less than what would be required in in some of our other areas. So we do have parking minimums for our residential uses, but not really much for our commercial uses.
Good, thank you.
All right, other questions for James or staff? Hearing none, I will open a public hearing at 6:44 and would welcome the applicant to come on up and talk about the plan. Not required, but could be helpful.
Hi, my name is Christina Breton. We were up here last month and kind of talked about the need for parking, and I know one of the questions that was asked was, how do we do the calculation as far as parking spaces? And we had to kind of explain for every one provider, we would need 4 or 5 different parking spots. And once again, it was a miscommunication as far as how many that we needed for the initial site plan. So after we sat down and kind of made our final calculations, we realized that we needed more than we had originally asked for. And I think the other thing that we wanted to point out was that on the initial application, the amount of square footage was quite, was small. That was just the basement, square footage. So now the new application reflects the total square footage of both the top and the bottom, which I think would help support the reason why we would need more parking for the building.
Thank you. Just a quick question, refresh my memory. How many parking places were requested last month?
I think it was 60.
60?
I
Yeah,
believe it was 60 or 65 somewhere.
yeah, 60 or
Okay,
65,
very
yeah.
good. Other questions for our applicant while she's up? Justin, please.
So I went through and calculated some of the other medical uses in the surrounding area based on public records and then physically counting parking spots. At that 90, it seems like you're very high on parking. I guess my main question is, how often do you expect your parking lot to be 100% full?
That's hard to predict because a lot of times it depends on how the flow is going. So I would say, as a provider, if I'm having a good day and I can get in and get out of a patient room, I could probably have 2 patients there, so then you're going to have 2 parking spots. If I'm having a bad day and I'm running 45 minutes behind, or gosh forbid, an hour behind, I could potentially have 7 patients, 3 in rooms and then 2 or 3 of them waiting out in the lobby. So there's no way to really kind of predict, how that goes. I would say majority of the time I run on schedule, but there's no way that I can predict that. The other thing that's an unknown for us is that we do have patients that instead of calling to schedule appointments, fill out paperwork and things like that, they decide to swing by the clinic to fill out paperwork. We also sell product out of our office as well, prescription medications, things like that. So we have an unknown number of patients that will just swing by without an appointment and pick up prescriptions or pick up samples or pick up other things like that. So it's hard to gauge, depending on how many people are going to be there on an average day.
Okay.
It also depends on how many providers are working that day. Not all providers work 4 days a week. And then we were also looking at expansion as well. Part of the reason why we built the building was because we want to be able to expand our services. So I would say we've got room to add another 2 or 3 providers, whether they're cosmetic or medical providers. And when we add more providers, then we're going to need more space. My biggest fear is we've grown so quickly in the first 4 years of business. What happens in 2 more years? I add 2 or 3 more providers. We have more we have enough room in our building, and all of a sudden, I don't have enough parking for my patients to show up. One of the things that we potentially are going to add is what's called a Mohs provider. And so that is a special dermatologist that does Mohs procedures. When you come in for your Mohs procedure, you're there the entire day. It's not a regular patient appointment where you come in, you are there for half an hour, 45 minutes, you're seen, and then you're left. You actually come in, you have your skin cancer removed, they put a dressing on, you wait in the waiting room, they process the tissue, which can take 2 hours. If they clear the margins, great, they bring you into the room, they numb you up and they repair it. If they don't clear the margins, then they actually take another layer. They numb it up, take another layer of tissue, out to the waiting room you go for another 2 hours. So some patients having a Mohs procedure could be there for 7 or 8 hours. So then that takes up a whole, parking spot for the entire day, not ones that are coming and going. So if we were to add that, service to the facilities, then you're looking at more staff there, plus potentially 15 patients that would be there for a whole 6-8 hours.
Okay.
Other questions for the applicant? All right. Thank you.
Questions? Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. We may have other questions, but thank you for now. Would anybody else like to speak on this matter? Max, anybody online? No? Got nobody online looking to talk, looking to press number 5? Raise their hand? All right. Very good. Well, I'm going to close the public hearing then at 6:50, and I'll turn it to discussion and/or questions for staff. I would just like to say historically, we're a little wary of big parking lots. There was a Thrifty Drug, which has kind of been on my mind lately because Thrifty Drug is closing their location on Washington Street. And that was one of the first cases that we dealt with. And boy, everything was so well intended, but we ended up with a parking lot that is just gigantic. And so I think, just to kind of explain a little bit, that's where I think some of us are kind of coming from. Because once you build a parking lot, it's always going to be a parking lot. But that's just a thought. But anyhow, any other questions or thoughts?
I'd just like to echo that comment that once it's a parking lot, it's always going to be a parking lot. And it's easier to show need to convert green space to parking lot than to get it the other way around, where we could converting a parking lot back to green space.
We did that at Mississippi Landing, at the park on Mississippi Landing. That was actually converted, a parking lot was converted back. But that's it. All right. Any other questions or thoughts? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion on the CUP.
I'll make a motion to approve to the 91 spots.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second by Erickson. Any discussion?
I'll just point out too, I think the context, your point is very well taken about the Thrifty White parking lot, or the one in that neighborhood.
Infamous.
And very unfortunately so, but I just would say, I think the context of that being a neighborhood versus in this location, I think kind of is the difference maker for me. So I plan to support it.
All right, very good. Any other discussion on the motion that's on the floor? All right, hearing no other discussion, then we are going to, all in favor, let's do a roll call on this one, just for the heck of it. Stephanie, can we do a roll call?
Duval,
Aye.
Gorham,
Aye.
Grasula,
No.
Peterson,
Aye.
and Erickson.
Yes.
All right, very good. It has passed. Next steps for the applicant, James?
Yep, so as this is a recommending body, this will be forwarded to the next city council meeting for a final decision on April 6th at 7:30 p.m.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. We're up into item 7B. We're going to consider an interim use permit for the operation of a year-round warming shelter at 1926 South 7th Street. James, could you help us on that one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Janice Shogren has submitted a request on behalf of Bridges of Hope for an interim use permit amendment to operate a year-round warming shelter for the homeless in Brainerd Lakes area at 1926 South 7th Street. The applicant does meet all conditions in the allowed use section, which was in the findings of fact. The applicant has made changes to mitigate concerns regarding year-round operations. A few of those items include the shelter has updated its public safety plan and consent form to address potential police investigations. The shelter has also updated its guest agreement to require individuals within 3 to 5 days of their first night to actively participate in My Pathways plan. If no progress is made within 30 days, services may be denied. I do want to note a letter from the public was submitted to the department in opposition of the year-round use, and it was sent to the commission members yesterday. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the interim use permit contingent upon the conditions listed in the findings of fact. Those conditions are interim use permit shall expire on April 30th, 2027. Number 2, if the Brainerd Police Department determines that the facility has been used in a disorderly manner and upon recommendation of the police chief, the interim use permit shall be brought before the city council for review and consideration for suspending or revoking the permit at the next available city council meeting. Number 3, staff shelter staff shall provide a report to City Council each year prior to September 1st. With that, I can answer any questions. There are some applicants present. There may be one online as well, and I'll turn it back over to the commission.
Excellent. Questions for James? James, another point?
Wanted to note one other thing. Police Chief Davis is here to answer any questions as well.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Any other questions? And if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to open a public hearing at, anything else?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
I might
Dave,
have
what you
one
got?
for James.
Yeah.
What is, I mean, this is kind of an outlier, this building. Where would be the perfect place to have this?
That's pretty subjective. So typically, this isn't a commercial area. Perhaps, not in the middle of a neighborhood. So, where services aren't near it. So certainly there's a bike trail next to this, which does help provide for transportation. But yeah, pretty subjective.
All right, I just wondering if there was a spot, so.
That magic, yeah, well.
Yeah, that magic
I get it,
spot.
I get it. Other questions?
I've got maybe a question for the applicant, but I'll hold off until after the public
That
hearing.
sounds good. Well, then, with that, I'll open a public hearing at 6:55. I'd like to welcome either of our applicants or both. Come on up and present the idea.
All right, thank you for having us. So I'm here, I'm Samantha Barron, the Program Director of Bridges of Hope. I'm speaking on behalf of the shelter. I also invited Bill, he's our shelter manager, and Jana Shogrim is here online as well to help answer questions. So I'm just going to do kind of a brief update and just share kind of some of the progress we've made for Bridges of Hope. Had a warming shelter, sorry, I'm overcoming a cold. So just some context, so far this season, we've served 155 unique individuals and provided over 4,200 nights of sleep. That's demonstrating the continuous need for a shelter in our community and the impact it's having. And we're continuing to focus our efforts on how to better evolve, to better serve our guests. And a big part of that evolution is what we're calling our Pathways Project. And that's what I'm going to kind of focus my talk on. So our shelter manager has kind of shifted his schedule to focus half his time in the daytime hours, so he can now work directly with shelter guests, and this includes one-on-one meetings to assess their situations, helping them set goals, and supporting them as they kind of take steps towards stability and ideally moving on to a better pathway. We're also working on strengthening our collaboration with our community partners, so that is including weekly meetings with staff from Lighthouse Day Center, Crow Wing County, and those have been especially impactful, and I'm going to actually let Bill focus more on kind of the content of those meetings because he's at those meetings. In addition to those weekly meetings, we also do those monthly collaborative meetings with all participating organizations. That's Bridges of Hope, Crow Wing County, Sharing Bread Soup Kitchen, Lighthouse Beginnings are the big partners in this collaborative, and we've come to because we often serve the same individuals, so these meetings are allowing us to kind of align our efforts, make sure we're sharing updates, we have a shared code of conduct, and kind of that unified front as we're interacting with these clients or guests, however you want to put it, on a daily basis. To help reduce barriers for our participants, we've also partnered with Lighthouse to offer a free shuttle service, and this is helping our participants access these essential services and resources to help them on their pathway. We've also introduced a greeter position at the Sharing Bread Soup Kitchen. This is helping to create a welcoming position and welcoming and positive experience for them. And again, another touch point along this Pathways project. As far as, outside this project, we're working on strengthening our communication with Brainerd Police Department to ensure safety not only to our staff, guests, but the community as a whole. We're and I just want to kind of end it with, we're really grateful for the support we've received. It's really allowed us to continue and enhance the work we're doing to help grow our programs like this New Pathways project. And we're really excited on the impact it's having. And again, Bill's going to touch more on those numbers. So I just kind of want to wrap up by saying I appreciate your time and opportunity to speak here today. And do you have any questions before I turn it over to Bill?
Any questions for our applicant? I'll have the same question for Bill that I'll have for you. How do you feel, what's going to be different in your approach to the city council? A lot of us were disappointed last year with how things went. Do you feel like you've made progress in answering their concerns and questions?
So I just started in November, so I'm not comfortable addressing that question just
okay.
because I wasn't here, so
Sure.
I can't give proper context to it.
Sure.
That might be a better question for Jana to answer. I know
Okay.
changes have been made,
Okay,
but
good.
I can't speak appropriately to it. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I think that's all for the moment. We may have later questions, but.
No
very
problem.
good. Bill, do you want to come up next? And name and address, if you could be so kind.
Good evening. My name's Bill Weir, representing the Bridge on 7th Warming Shelter, address 1926 South 7th Street. So we're here once again asking to be open all year round to help better serve the individuals that are in our area that need the help that we are providing. I do feel that we have addressed some of the concerns over the last year with some of the city council and some of the people in the community. We have worked very hard to figure out what the issues were and try to address them as much as we possibly can. My higher-ups, Jan and Samantha, have been doing an excellent job working with Chief Davis here to come up with a public safety plan. I have been working one-on-one with Lighthouse Beginnings as well as our partners in Crow Wing County to be in better communication, not just of what's going on with the agencies, but what's going on with the people that we serve as well. It's very important for all of us to be informed on what's going on so we can all provide a better way of helping them, because if we all know what's going on, we can all work towards that same goal, but if all of us are working towards different things, nothing is going to get done. Since we have started the Pathways Project at February 1st of this year, our communication has been excellent. I'm communicating with Lighthouse Beginnings nearly every single day, as well as the soup kitchen. When things happen at the soup kitchen, I'm informed, Lighthouse is informed. It's all just one big communication going on. It's also been very good for our intentional helping, to whereas we're actually able to sit down and talk with our guests one-to-one, give them the attention that they deserve, figure out what is going on, what they need, and what we can better do to help them. And since doing that, as of February 1st, 5 people have gotten jobs. And I should mention that 2 out of those 5 have 2 jobs as of this morning. 10 people have got into some sort of housing. And 6 people have gotten to some type of treatment, and that's just from February 1st of this year. So that's a huge, huge bound to make in just a month and a half of helping that many people. Now just imagine what we could do if we were open 12 months out of the year. I don't want to see people stay at my shelter forever. That's not my goal. I want to help them move on and build their life. The shelter is not an end place, it's a beginning place. Thank you.
Any questions for Bill? I got a question for you, Bill.
Sure.
I work at the Bridge on 7th. I work at the Bridge of Harmony on 7th.
Yeah.
Did you get those, the big bag of gloves and hats the other day?
Yes, I did.
Good, just checking on that. Sometimes people mix up the 2 bridges and just want
Yeah.
to make sure we were on the same path. That's all I have for right now. We
All
may
right.
have another question for you. Ms. Sjogren, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I just want to reiterate what Samantha and Bill have said, that we're very proud of the work we're doing. We're very grateful for the collaboration recently with Chief Davis and throughout the opening of the shelter with the Brainerd Police Department. I would echo what Bill said, that I do think we have made significant progress in identifying some of the concerns that the council had this time last year in terms of trying to increase our expectations of people. Not that we ever didn't expect anything, but I think we've done a better job of tightening up our collaborations with local partners and probably doing a better job of communicating that back out, what we are doing to help people. Bill gave you some good statistics on some of the outcomes we've been tracking since February 1st. I just wanted to make one clarifying point on that we've been working with Lighthouse Beginnings, Sharing Bread Soup Kitchen in Crow Wing County, really since the inception of the shelter, so over 4 years now. We've, once we heard the concerns from the council last year, we, I would say, formalized that collaboration more. And we started meeting right away last May after the shelter had to close on May 1st. And those partners were concerned about the guests that we're serving in common. So I just want to make sure everyone realizes we've been in touch on at least a monthly basis, sometimes multiple times a month with our partners since last May. And we've really finally just solidified kind of what this looks like, and we're starting to track some outcomes because we know that's important to be able to share back with you and the community some of the positives that we are seeing. There are some concerns about the shelter being open year round, and might that draw more people to our area? Might that not give people a motivation, so to speak, to figure something else out for the summer if we're closing? And I guess what I would just say to that is in terms of closing for the summer, we see people scatter. That's what happened, and Lighthouse Beginnings would attest to that as well. I liken it to, some of our teacher friends. Kids have the summer off from school and they come back and they call it the summer slide, right? So there's some sliding in behaviors and maybe reading, proficiencies and that sort of thing. And we see that with our guests when they don't have the Bridge on 7th to stay at on a nightly basis, and then have the Lighthouse Beginnings Day Center to go to. People scatter to try to figure out where they're going to be, and then we lose all touch with them, and any sort of progress that we've maybe helped them make in terms of job searching, treating mental illness, attending to addiction, searching for housing, whatever that might be, we just see a big backslide on that. We have to start all over again in the fall. And then, some people, longer term, homelessness is an issue, and that's something that we work on. But the thing that really worries me the most about closing during the summer is, let's say somebody, for whatever reason, becomes unhoused on April 1st or April 15th, let's say, through a job loss, a relationship change, whatever that might be. That person only has a couple of weeks, so to speak, before the impending deadline of closing the shelter on April 30th, for example. So while I can understand some of the concerns about chronic homelessness, which we need to address in a different manner, I hate to think that some people who may find themselves in the unfortunate circumstance of not having a place to sleep at night in March or April have a very limited time to work with us and our partners before we have to close on April 30th each year. So really appreciate you guys hearing us out tonight. And we just want to serve well. We want to continue partnering with the city and our partners, and we want to do the right thing to help people and be good neighbors.
Very good, thank you. Questions for Jana? I think that'll be good for now, but we may come back. So thank you so much for your help. Thank you. All right, would anybody else like to speak on the matter? Chief Davis, got any thoughts? Please.
I could spend an hour speaking on the subject of homelessness, so I would definitely entertain any specific questions if you had any. To summarize, I won't go into great detail, but I will echo some of the comments that some of the others made. Is over the last year, there has been increased communication with our department. We shared some of our concerns, some of them that I illustrated about this time last year to the council, at least my concerns speaking for the police department. And I'm pleased with the communication and the plan they have moving forward to address some of those issues. Now, time will tell if a little bit of our creativity and our forethought to address some of those things actually works or not. But I'm hopeful, and I appreciate where we've come in the last year.
Very good. Questions for the chief? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Is anybody else online, or anybody else would like to speak on the matter? Not seeing or hearing anybody, I will close the public hearing then at 7:08, and we'll open the floor to discussions and/or questions. Mr. Erickson.
I've got a few of both.
Let's go.
So first of all, I wanted to thank Jana, Bill, Samantha, and the team, and Chief Davis for the steps you've taken to address some of the concerns that the city has had in the past year. I think first and foremost is, I think, acknowledging that the legitimate concerns that the city had. For me, that was important to see. I wanted to just, I would try to be quick here, but I wanted to back up a little bit from, I remember when this first came before the Planning Commission 4 years ago, and it was for the warming shelter to operate seasonally during the cold winter months. And it was both presented that way as a warming shelter, specifically named a warming shelter for that reason. It gained support from the Planning Commission. It gained support from council to operate as such seasonally. And then after operating for I think it was a 3-year interim use permit. So after 2.5 years, when they came back for to renew the permit, is when the request to go year-round came. And that's really when I think a lot of the concerns, both from myself and from I think other council members, about, will going year-round promote a permanent culture of dependency? Will going year-round act as a draw from other communities? And when, just speaking from personal experience on that, when those, I feel, legitimate concerns were brought up, the response was, quite passionate, and as it should be, but, it was a pretty rocky road for both Bridges and for the city, I think, going through that. And so that's why I led with, thanking them for first acknowledging those concerns, and then I think taking the steps to address and mitigate those concerns. So those were my concerns kind of throughout. And then now, again, coming back with the same request for going year-round, I still have those concerns. But I think with seeing this application, the work that's been done with the safety plan, on two positive notes I wanted to say is that kind of the approach that I try to bring to the Planning Commission is, I don't want to see the city stand in the way of a nonprofit doing good nonprofit work, regardless of what the nonprofit is, and I don't want to see the city stand in the way of a business wanting to do what a business wants to do with their property. And so I've kind of grappled with this and found kind of those principles at odds with wanting to, with the concerns that I had about some of the operations. So with that said, I like the work that's been done. I think the work with Lighthouse and development of the safety plan, development of the guest agreement, I think goes a long ways towards securing commitments from both the guests and from Bridges and the other organizations, and the increased communication between Bridges and the police department of the city, I think goes a long way. I did want to, and I'm wrapping this up, I apologize, but I did have, and Chief Davis, I don't know if you had a chance, I spoke with Janet today, and you had talked about, and I think it's a really good idea, about, there's a section, my computer went to sleep here, in the guest agreement, the statement about, the disclosure about, I will agree within 3 to 5 days of my first night to actively participate in the Pathways Plan, I think is a really good clause or statement in the guest agreement. However, I'd like to see that added to the safety plan so that both the guest and Bridge on 7th are mutual partners in ensuring and being accountable for seeing that through to fruition. So I don't know if that's a condition we could add or ask the applicant to include. I think that would further strengthen the bond between, like I said, ensuring that follow-through is happening. And partially why I think that's an important step is I think that will help mitigate any actual or perceived draw from other communities. So I think that's an important piece. So I'm looking at my list here. I think that might be all I wanted to say on it. Oh, I'm sorry, I did have one other question. Could I ask the applicant a question still?
They may, absolutely.
So one, would that be a possibility for you to include that language in your safety plan? And then secondly, there was other language, I think, that talked about approval for other, you know, when they leave, if they're going to Lighthouse or if they're going to work. And then there was a clause about other approved activities. And I just wanted to get further clarification on what that meant. Does that mean I'm going to go to the park, or I'm going to, you know, what sort of criteria would you be looking at for that other category?
Sure. So Bill, I can speak to that really quick, and then if I don't hit it the right way, you can speak up. So for us, first of all, the other activities would be employment, going to treatment, medical appointments, that sort of thing, you know, significant, reasonable, you know, things that take up positive activities for your day, not just, I feel like going on a walk instead of going to the day center. Absolutely. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so, and those things are listed kind of in already, so it's more maybe as other things arise. But.
Sure, and I mean, I think that's where, I appreciate your point about, you know, I think trusting us as businesses and nonprofits to do what we do best. So yeah, we would make that judgment call in alignment with those types of activities is what we would want to do. I just want to make sure that we leave some room for some reasonable activity that somebody might be partaking. Maybe they have a funeral for the day or something like that. You know, I don't want to have to make it be an exhaustive list, but we absolutely want to be a good partner and have expectations of our folks that they are utilizing the day center or they're spending their day in a way that makes sense otherwise.
Thank you. And then the one about the language from the guest agreement to the safety plan.
Yep. So that's a good question. So Chief Davis and I actually spoke about that yesterday too. So I said I would take a look at the public safety plan. At first, I didn't quite see how that expectation would maybe align with the public safety plan exactly. But then when we spoke, you know, we talked about the section 4 that is about intake and conduct controls. So if it would be agreeable to this group and the council, I would maybe propose that we would add a line in there, you know, a 4-point something that would talk about our staff working to the best of our ability with guests, or the expectation be that guests uphold and follow through with that guest agreement that they sign. I don't know if I want to hold up. I understand your concern about the pathways plan. I just wouldn't want to single out one piece of that guest agreement to make it seem to our guests that they should follow just one piece of that guest agreement over something else. So maybe would it be reasonable, or would it help if we would just make sure that it's reflective in this plan that there is a guest agreement and there are expectations that guests will be expected to adhere to?
If I may.
May.
So section 4, you know, when we spoke, I recommended maybe section 4, and looking further, maybe section 7 as well, neighborhood impact mitigation. It talks specifically about the guests acknowledge and agree. So that might be an appropriate location for it as well. I guess the more specific, the better, in my opinion. So I don't know about it.
Sure. So let's see. Maybe we could add, okay, so it says in 7.3, guests acknowledge and agree that, and then if you go to point 3, it said guests are expected to engage in constructive daytime activities, including participation in recovery-oriented programming, mental health. I won't read it ad nauseum for you, but maybe what we need to do is just add, you know, attending programming or working on a pathways plan at the day center in that list. That might be the best spot. Yeah.
Yeah, some language that kind of ties it to
Yep.
Mr. Chair, the chief has a hand up as well.
I'm ready.
Yeah, it says guests agree to comply with structured daytime transition procedures. I think that's where we were trying to address it. I want to be careful that I'm not so specific in a plan that if we change the name of the pathways project, for example, or if Lighthouse Beginning ceases to exist, not that I expect that, you know, So I don't know. To me, I think that's what we were trying to address when it says that guests agree to comply with structured daytime transition procedures. But I'm open to what's agreeable as long as I just am not, I don't want, if that becomes a condition of the permit being approved and then the name of a program or something changes, I just want to make sure we don't create a bunch of bureaucracy for any of us that I have to bring this agreement back to you and get it approved if the name of a program changes or something.
Are you good with satisfied with the question, the answers?
I am. I have one other question, but I can wait.
All right, Chief
Different
Davis.
question.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak, thank you, Mr. Chair, speak to, I guess, my observation and concern, a little bit of the conversation that I had. So, in the guest agreement, it is illustrated what the expectation is, and it's just as it's titled, a guest agreement. Within the public safety plan, which, as I read, a significant part of it gives direction to staff how to proceed in certain occasions. Under 7.3 that was just recently mentioned, it seems to once again kind of revert back to a guest acknowledgement and a guest agreement. And what I was ideally looking for is guest agreements are nice, and hopefully they follow the agreement that they made, but looking for something when they don't agree, something within the safety plan or some sort of policy that directs staff when they do not follow through with one of these agreements. Staff, this is how you will proceed. This is the direction you're being given.
You're looking for consequences if one doesn't follow.
Yeah, and a defined, I guess, process as best as you can define it for a staff member. They're not following through with this agreement. This is our policy directing our staff, as policies do, how to address them no longer agreeing to this portion.
Okay, very good. Ms. Sjogren, any response to that?
Sorry about that. I was just toggling between the guest agreement and the other forms to respond. I mean, we're here, as has been demonstrated, to be good partners and get to a place that Chief Davis and Planning Commission and Council can feel good about. I don't have any issues with, I guess I might just need a little direction on anything specific language that would be agreeable. From where I sit, I see that we're saying this is an expectation. We're asking you as an adult participating in our programming to comply. And then it does refer to, that if you don't, if you refuse, it can result in progressive discipline consistent with facility policy. So I'm just looking for some guidance here on what would help. I don't know if you want you to see us a specific policy for how our staff are responding to this specifically.
Let me put it this way. Do you have a feeling that if the chief and Jana, if you guys, before this comes to the city council, could meet again and agree on some language? Does that seem like a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, that's fine by me. Yep.
Okay, good. Excellent. I'm going to, next questions.
Well, just whether we would tie in Director Kromvik in that to ensure that the product is.
Yeah.
I think you've got a sense of what the ask is here, right, James? And
I do, yeah. So, either a motion to recommend that Bridges works with Chief Davis prior to the council meeting to include additional language in the safety plan. You could certainly motion or just kind of give that direction to them to do that. To Janet's point, probably wouldn't recommend actually putting it into a condition because that could have issues with the interim use permit.
So not including it in the IUP formally?
Not including it in a condition of the IUP formally.
Okay. Would that be something, would you want like a side vote on this before?
You could do a second motion to recommend.
A second motion. Okay, so what we're going to do, when we get to that point, we'll have the first motion on the IUP, and then we'll look at a second motion to get the language consistent and the thoughts consistent between the police department's concerns and Bridges. Does that sound like a plan?
I think we should flip-flop those.
Flip-flop them and go, okay, I'm fine with that. So when we get to the motions, we'll start with that motion first. finishing up the questions. Tad, did you still have another question?
Yeah, more of a comment. And I should have led with this because it's a bit of a negative one. But Janice, since the time you and I spoke, and now I spoke with a resident who lives on South 7th, and brought up a concern. So I mentioned that I would mention it here. So, and it is, I think, it is quite concerning. I'm going to support the motion, or I plan to support the motion, but a resident mentioned that they live in the apartments just south of the bridge on 7th, and he says that a lot of times homeless will come to the apartments and be buzzing the door, and they'll buzz and buzz and buzz and buzz and buzz, and they'll go down the line until someone gets frustrated enough to let them in. And then he's seen them in the hallway and under the steps and things, and so I said that I would mention it. That is quite concerning, and I see it as an opportunity for, I think it's FHA to maybe coordinate with you and maybe or law enforcement to get that resolved and get something in place to ensure that that's not happening. So, and I couldn't quantify, but he said that happens a lot. He also did reference that there was some vehicle break-ins, but that has not happened for a while, is what he said. So I did ask, how do you know that it's those coming to or from the shelter? And he was confident that it was, but that was my conversation. I said I'd share it, so I wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. I don't think you have to answer that now.
Yeah, no question, just a
No
comment.
question, perfect, excellent. Then, any other questions or concerns on the board before we get to motions? I'm just going to say I think I will support both the IUP tonight. I think a lot of progress has been made in the last year on this. It's good to see. I think the process has really matured. I think this is a lot of we're moving closer here on this. So with that being said, I will open the floor to motions. And the first motion is going to be, I'm just going to call it agreement of the language in the plans. I'm just going to call that, is that good enough if I just call it agreement of language in the, what are we calling this, the safety plan? Trying to get my language correct here.
I'd take a stab at it to be more specific if you don't mind. So direct Director of Bridges to work with the police chief and Director Kramvik to come to agreement on the language within the safety plan.
Excellent.
And present it at the next council
That's a
meeting.
great motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, now we are looking for a motion on the IUP. And any discussion and/or a motion?
Chair?
Yes, please.
I'd make a motion to approve the interim use permit that shall expire on April 30th, 2027.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Any discussion?
Comment from Director Kramvik?
And Mr. Kramvik, yes?
And is that a recommendation for the other two conditions as well? So there's 3 conditions.
I'm going to go back to
I beg your
the,
pardon. It was inclusive, thank you.
it was inclusive, so it does cover those. All right, and then we did get a second from Mr. Peterson. And any other discussion before we vote? And on this one, I think I'd like to see have a roll call. Stephanie, could we do a roll call on this one, please?
Duval.
Aye.
Gorham.
Aye.
Grasula.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Very good. Next step for the applicants, James.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this will be heard at the next city council meeting, which is April 6th at 7:30 PM in the council chambers.
All right, very good. Thank you thank you to all of you and Jenna and everybody for your time. And thank you, Chief, for your input tonight. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep. And at that point, is number 9, is that going to be the comprehensive plan or is that the itinerary on that one? I don't have my numbers straight.
Yep, so next one is consider conditional use permit to exceed lot size maximums
Oh, the lot
on
size maximum.
1017.
We're 8C, that's where we are. Very good. All right, if you could help us on 8C.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant is proposing the consolidation of 3 lots into 1 parcel on Bluff Avenue. The application for a CUP is to exceed the maximum lot size allowed in the TN1 zoning district. Standards for the TN1 zoning district states the maximum lot dimensions is 11,250 square feet without a conditional use permit. The applicant has proposed to consolidate 3 lots into 1 lot, which will equate to 11,808 square feet. Really, this was due to a vacated right-of-way, which is the reason this proposed lot exceeds that lot size maximum in the TN1 zoning districts. I do want to note that the 3 lots proposed for consolidation would have a 75-foot width, so 25, 25, and 25-foot lots. Lot lines could not be adjusted to create 2 lots that would conform to our standards, as the lot size minimum for the TN1 district is 50 feet wide. The applicant is proposing the construction of a single-family home. With that, staff recommends to hold a public hearing and recommend approval of the conditional use permit as presented. The applicant is here as well.
Very good. Questions for James?
I have a question.
Start with Mr. Erickson.
Which bullet it is here? It mentions in here, or you mentioned in here that this is as a result of an easement. Whereabouts is that, or can you just describe what, is it a platted alley, or?
Yep, so Bluff Avenue was originally platted to be a pretty large right-of-way, and an easement was vacated a number of years ago. I know the surveyor had to go back into some old documents to find that. So staff wasn't sure how much of that easement was vacated. Originally thought that this might be an administrative subdivision consolidation. So when we did get that survey back, and this is pretty consistent with all of Bluff Avenue, the vacated portion that goes to this property ended up exceeding those numbers. So it was part of Bluff Avenue.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions for James? I have a quick question. I didn't have a chance to do a site visit on this one. Is this when are we starting to go down the hill, or is this before the hill?
So yeah, this one's kind of odd. It's again, Bluff Avenue. There's Terrace and Bluff Avenue.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't believe the applicant could speak to this. If there's a, I'm not sure how much it drops off at the end of it. Obviously, there is some dropped in this area.
Yeah. But does Bluff veer if you're heading east, does Bluff veer off to the left, or does Terrace veer off to the left?
So Bluff, I believe, kind of turns into Terrace.
Turns into Terrace. Oh, okay, that's what it's doing. And then the remainder becomes Evergreen. Okay. I was just trying to get a sense of the geography there. Any other questions for James? Otherwise, I say we open a public hearing at 7:31, and we're looking for a CUP for exceeding the maximum lot size on 1017 Bluff Avenue. And if the applicant is here, I would love him to come up and speak. Your name and address, please, when you're ready.
Good evening. I'm Bernie Machi, and I purchased the lot in July, and then I went to Jim Kramer, and thanks to James and the engineer, it took him about 6 months to do the survey. The survey was just completed now, about a month ago or so, and then I also got the street, because the street, it goes back to the late 1800s, is why it took so long for Jim Kramer to do the surveying. He worked with James and the city engineer quite a bit, and I want to thank James and for all his help in getting this done. And yes, I want to build a single family home there. And the lot does kind of go down, so it looks like I can do a walkout basement very easily. So, do you have any other questions?
Any other questions for our applicant? I have one question. Are you building this house for yourself, or is this going to be a commercial property?
No, this would be for myself. Mm-hmm. I live about 8 miles down here, south of the city. And I'm real familiar with, I live on Lower South Long Lake. And so it was very interesting to listen to Jacob. We've had a lake association, been on the lake since 1973, and I think we started a lake association about 1978, if I remember right. But a lake association does a lot of what the things he does, what Jacob was talking about. So we're all trying to get our banks and all that. And like he said, some people planted flowers and all that, and we limit the amount of our yard space going down to the lake, is what he's talking about. And I got trees and stuff between my house and the lake.
Very good.
Right, and so you like, they try and limit it. I got 125 feet lot, and I have about 15 or 20 feet of a path down to the lake where the dock is.
Very good.
So that might help explain what he's doing.
Excellent. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this matter while we have the public hearing open? Do we have anybody online who may want to speak? Nobody online? Nobody else? I'm going to close our public hearing then at 7:34, and I'll open the floor to any discussion and/or motion. Yes, Mr. Duvall.
Just a curiosity question to Director Gromvik. The county website shows that as one parcel and not three, but it's actually three parcels that need to be replatted, huh?
Right, it's gonna be one lot when it's all done. Is that right, James?
And I can clarify that. We did have a meeting this year. The county brought in a lot of municipalities. County is currently consolidating on GIS properties for tax purposes, but they're not a legal consolidation. So it's a little bit more administrative work for us to take a look at it. Currently working with the county on, supposedly there's going to be another layer where it can go back to kind of historic plats to see if it's actually been legally consolidated or not. But that's a reason that it's shown as one property, but it's technically not legally consolidated, just for tax purposes right now.
So it's not a lot of record
Correct.
at the dimensions that our applicant wants. And that's why we're doing a CUP.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Can I add something? I've been working with Green and Peterson, and I had to have some of the neighbors sign off. And they just got it all back, and they're taking it to Crow County to help make it one lot.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you. All right, Mr. Erickson.
I would, unless there's other discussion, I would move approval of the conditional use permit as presented that allows for the consolidation of 3 lots with the total area of 11,808 square feet, square feet.
Second.
And we have a second. Do we have any discussion? I just want to say it's great to see somebody building a single-family house in Brainerd. That's terrific. And we have a lot of duplexes and whatnot, so it's great to see a single-family house. I think that's terrific. With all that being said, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Next step for our applicant.
Yep, so this will be heard at the next city council meeting for final approval, April 6th, 7:30 PM in the council chambers here.
Okay, thank you, James.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Stephanie.
All righty. We are ready to discuss our planning commission itinerary. Did I miss anything on that one?
One more item.
Which one are we? One more. 'Cause I didn't get the back page. What's our last one? I don't have the last page.
Variance.
Thank you. Hey, there it is. I got the last page going. Oh, gosh, we have a variance on an existing garage. I forgot, the garage on 1513th Pennsylvania Avenue. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Raymond T. Kukowski has submitted a variance request to construct a 14 by 26-foot accessory structure to replace an existing 10-foot by 20 accessory structure. The applicant is requesting to maintain the existing 2-foot side yard setback. Variance is required because you're expanding the structure that's already there. The proposed accessory structure will meet all other dimensional requirements of the CN2 district. The proposed accessory structure is essentially located where the existing garage is currently placed and will not alter the character of the property or the neighborhood. Practical difficulty is due to an existing driveway configuration and a sewer line that runs from the alley to the house. While not prohibited, placement of a structure over or near a sewer line is not ideal in the event of a collapse. No party has contacted the Community Development Department regarding the variance request. And with that, staff recommend to hold a public hearing and recommend approval of this variance request for the construction of a 14 by 26-foot accessory structure at 1513 Pennsylvania Avenue in the location presented by the applicant. With that, I can answer any questions. The applicant is also here.
Questions for James? No questions for James. We'll open the public hearing then at 7:38. And I invite the applicant to come up, state your address, and tell us a little bit about the project, please.
I'm very hard of hearing and I'm very, so I'm Ray Kukowski. Thank you, gentlemen. The reason I'm doing this is I'm just trying to upgrade my garage. I've owned the house for a few years. My disabled son lives there. I do not live there. I've bought it to plan on to live there once I moved out of my existing home, but I bought a different one. Anyway, make a long story short, I talked to the neighbor to keep the 2-foot setback and to make a larger garage. I need to do some landscaping. The driveway flows to the house, so I gotta tear all that out. I want to do it all at one time. So that means the whole driveway work and a new garage. The garage is a new Model T garage. You can't park in it anyway. You can't get out of it if you get in a car. But that's basically what I'm, asking for.
Very good. Any questions for our applicant? Yes, Justin, please.
So with tearing out the existing driveway, would there be any practical difficulty to making this rear-loaded? I believe that's what the code says, if I'm correct, James, or is that not correct in this zone?
We're going to have, this one's going to be for James.
I can look that up in our code here.
We're talking about the garage, which direction the garage, whether it's front-loaded or rear-loaded.
It'd be front-loaded garage.
Okay. And James, any thoughts on that?
So let me pull up the dimensional standards for CN2. Yep, so the TN districts have alley requirements, but the CN districts do not.
Thank you.
Okay. And this is a TN? Correct?
This is a CN.
Oh, we're in a CN, so, okay, so, all right, very good. So I think, so basically the garage is good facing the direction it is. We were wondering about the garage, it's good facing the direction it is. We're still working on it, but that question's been cleared up. I think if nobody else has any other questions, you can take a seat, and we may have another question, but I think we're good for now. Would anybody else, while the public hearing is open, do we have anybody else who would like to comment on this? Anybody online? Nobody online? All right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:41. Yes?
I guess I
another question for
had
Ray?
a question for Mr. Kukowski. I apologize for letting you sit down. We moved a little bit too fast.
To come up to Ray, one more question here from Mr. Duvall.
So there is an alley behind your house, and across that alley, Max, could you show the drawing that's on the findings of fact?
There is a garage back. The alley basically stops right there, but it doesn't show that. There's some nice big white pines that are planted back there.
What is there?
The white pines,
Okay, yeah.
trees.
Yeah, so on your lot.
They don't show up on the print, but they plow the snow up to that alley. And the sewer line is actually 20 feet from the lot line, the south lot line. So you would be building over the sewer and the gas line runs here. And that's 20 feet off the lot line. So I didn't, you can't build a garage over a sewer or a gas line without moving everything.
So there's a gas line there as well. I see that.
Yeah, and the sewer line runs there. I talked to the city, he said it's 158 feet from the manhole to the Y. And so I measured that out, and it's 20 feet from the corner of my lot on the south end. The Y would be the sewer from the house to the sewer in the alley.
Thank you. And in your drawing, you're showing a 9-foot wall. Is it 412?
9 foot. I want to go 9 foot high.
So that's your foundation, and you fill level. Is that what you're doing?
Well, that whole area is going to have to be built up a little bit. because it all slopes down toward the house now, about 10 inches. So there'd be, more fill that would have to be hauled in and get the water to flow back toward the alley and back and out.
And your, Max, I think the findings of fact memo has sort of the, there you go. And yeah, so the aerial document there directly across is a garage that loads on the alley.
Yeah.
And who maintains and plows the alley? Does the city do that?
I think the city does.
Okay.
I'm not
And
sure,
it looks
but
like
it's never, it's not never that good of a job because they push the snow up just far enough so that the gentleman across the street can get back out again.
Yeah,
But
it looks like in my field visit, it looks like that push wall is past or about ends where your white pines that you're referencing also end down there at the bottom of the hill. Right, and the alley, you've got some
That's a
white
dead
pines.
end, it dead ends right there.
Yeah. Okay. So.
It goes down 2 more lots, but it actually, the
But
alley
the
kind of
maintenance
dead end.
part is what ends where, is where the city or
There's a big
whomever's
low
maintaining it.
hole in there
Yeah.
on the end of that alley.
So on that northeast corner of your lot, against the alley, it's not possible for you to put a garage in there that you access from the alley?
Yeah, it's possible, but, it's further away from the house, and I figured if I wanted to move into there, or my disabled son, that's more snow to shovel, more area to clean up, and I thought this would be just a little bit cleaner than putting a big structure on there that probably, I would never use that big of a one, but, just enough for one car and a lawnmower and stuff like that, and get rid of the shed that's there, because it's all old and decrepit anyway, so.
Okay, thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Kowski.
I've got one more question for you, Ray. The existing garage, the Model T garage as you referred to it, is it serviced from the street? So right now, there's a curb cut and it
It's
goes to there.
served
So
from
there is an existing
Pennsylvania
curb cut.
Avenue, yeah, there's curb cut in there,
Okay,
so that, that would be all rebuilt, that would be all new from the curb to the garage.
the curb in, yeah, but the curb cut would remain the same.
Pardon?
The curb cut will remain the same. It'll
Yeah,
be
the
same
curb height
access.
would remain the same.
Okay.
But everything from the curb back to the garage now the garage is 10 inches lower. So right now you go there and you're in knee-deep
Underwater.
water almost.
Yeah, very good.
I get water in the basement. I got a pump that I pump it back in the yard and
All right,
to keep that dry,
right. Thank you, Ray. I think that's all we have for you right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't think I have to, do I have to reclose the public hearing? I'll reclose the public hearing. Good.
Thank you.
7:47. Didn't mean to cut you out there. Those were good questions. Discussion?
Question for James.
Yes, please.
The sewer line and the gas line in the rear of the property, does that sufficiently pose a practical difficulty so we could move
That
forward?
does sufficiently create a practical difficulty.
And in addition to that, I know there is the one rear-loaded property there, but and I don't know if this is a legitimate factor, but to me, I look at the surrounding neighborhood, all of these homes have virtually the exact same setup. Looking at these other garages, they all look a little bit bigger. So I guess I have no problem I think it's very reasonable and it's an improvement in many ways.
Very good. Other questions, comments, and/or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it as staff recommendations.
Second.
I'm going to give the second to Justin. There we go. Any discussion on the motion? Yes, Mike?
Mr. Chair, I think, if we're going to approve this motion, we have a majority that supports it. I would recommend that we include a condition on that, that the applicant capture rainwater with guttering or something and directs that out and away from the adjoining property, where you're taking that larger roof surface and you're shedding half of that over to that property line and possibly causing problems on the neighbor's yard. So if we can condition that guttering is installed and maintained and directed away from the adjacent property to the south.
That's a question for Mr. Peterson. You're friendly to the amendment, the friendly amendment?
That good?
We do, can you do friendly amendments? I'm not sure if you can or not.
That's it. I think that's what you do in small towns.
I think we just did a friendly amendment, and so any questions about our now friendlier motion?
Not a question, I think it's a good point, those clubs are very close proximity, so.
Yeah, water is important to move, which way we move it. Very good. All right. I'm going to, we'll call a vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right. The next step for our applicant.
Yep, so this will be heard at the April 6th City Council meeting. Planning Commission is a recommending body. City Council has final approval. So again, April 6th, 7:30 p.m. in the council chambers here.
All right. Thank you, Ray. Good luck. Thank you. All right. We are moving on to, now we're moving on to item E, the Planning Commission itinerary. James?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, the itinerary we check from time to time with the Planning Commission is meant to provide an organization of topics and ordinance for the Planning Commission and the Community Development Department to review in the next year in order of importance. Staff proposed that the next item should be the comprehensive plan, which is approved by City Council. And while working on the comp plan update, staff proposed also to work on the Mississippi Headwaters regulations as well as the floodplain district. These are things that need to get updated. A couple of things that haven't been updated for probably 20 years. These do need to be completed due to state statutory requirements, and do want to note that work on these 3 planned items will most likely take up most of 2026. Obviously, if state statutes change for something, we have to change an ordinance. We'll have to fit those in, but that is what staff is recommending for the itinerary.
All right. Comments, questions from the group?
Looks like a lot of water work.
Looks like a lot, there's a theme there. There is a theme. All right, put your waders on. Excellent. All right, very good, James. I think I don't think we need any motion. I think we're going on a good direction there, so that's good. That's going to lead us up to F, and kind of talk about the comprehensive plan update and perhaps in appointing a commission member. James, you want to kind of set up the situation a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So City Council selected Bolton and Mink to update the comprehensive plan. Due to their experience working with the city of Brainerd, staff has already met with them and definitely confident that they'll do a great job. So I did meet with them on March 12th to begin the process of updating our comprehensive plan with the goal of completing the plan updated plan by the end of 2026. Throughout the process, staff will virtually meet monthly with Bolton and Mink in addition to some of the Planning Commission meetings. So staff is recommending that a liaison from the Planning Commission should also attend these meetings to help ensure the objectives of the Planning Commission are being met. So staff is recommending a motion to approve a liaison if anyone is interested. Staff would also like the Planning Commission to decide at the April 15th kickoff meeting. Bolton and Mink would like to come and have kind of initial kickoff meeting. Should this occur during the regular meeting, or would the commission be interested in a workshop prior to it starting at 5 p.m.? And that is everything. I can certainly answer any questions.
All right. So we have 2 steps here. I would say we look at the first step first, which is to appoint a member to sit on the committee here and to represent us. I think somebody who's retired and who has a lot of experience in these things might be a good person. But I'm looking. The floor is open for nominations.
Well, I would say that I'd welcome the opportunity. If it's helpful to the commission, I would welcome the opportunity to do that job. I'm not going to self-nominate, but.
I would nominate Mr. Duval.
We have a nomination.
I would second that.
We have a second there. Do we have any discussion? No, I think it's a good idea. All in favor say aye, and aye. There we go. Mike, you got another job.
Oh, there you go.
And then any thoughts on the proposal that we have a 5 o'clock workshop? Yes.
Mr. Chair, an unfair question of staff. do you have a crystal ball to say what does April look like? We're ramping up and, the things are awakening. Are we going to have a busy, what do you feel April's going to look like knowing what you've seen so far?
So as of right now, I know of one application for a variance request for, essentially there's a standard with how far a curb cut has to be away from an intersection. That's the one that I'm aware of. There might be a plan unit development application, but at this time have not been working with anybody else for any other items. And then we may be obviously looking at the shoreland ordinance again.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
How long a meeting is this supposedly with them?
I would say probably
45 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably 30 minutes to an hour.
Can I make a statement? I'd say we do it before. You don't want, if there's other stuff going on, we don't want to have people sit through that. I've been out there before.
Okay, very good. So I think, do we have a consensus that we should look at a 5 o'clock meeting with, I think we have a consensus on that one.
And then you can bring pizza if we end there.
You read my mind. I was going to say, we have conditioned that that Bolton and Mink provides some pizza and
Oh, better, yes.
some beverages, and we'll be quite willing to listen and all that. So I'll let you handle the details on that. But I think we have a consensus on that. That's very good. All right, we are up to 9. We're up to staff reports.
Yeah, so I'll just update the commission on a few things that we've been working on in the EDA. So the EDA did approve a shared services agreement with the chamber for a Washington Street mitigation plan. It was in the paper. The Washington Street reconstruction process or project will be kicking off here pretty soon. At the end of March, they're going to be holding a kickoff meeting at the Land Services Building, and then construction and some of the closures will start occurring in mid to late April. So the EDA did kind of earmark $20,000 to help businesses kind of through this process and create some marketing strategies with the chamber. We've met as kind of a large group, so that'll be a good thing for some of these Washington Street businesses. Obviously, there's been some concerns. And then secondly, a sign grant agreement was approved with Bladec as well. So the EDA is going to be offering up $25,000 in facade grants. It's a $5,000 grant per business, 50% matching grant for businesses that are adjacent to Washington Street. So kind of through that whole corridor. And then also a $15,000 sign grant permit. So that's going to be a $1,000 grant, 50% matching. That'll be throughout the entire city. It's meant for commercial signage. Really trying to target wall signage as we updated the sign standards of the Planning Commission to have some three-dimensional elements. So that is something that the city and the EDA is looking to do as well. So those are my updates.
Very good. Any questions for James? James, is anybody going to have to dress up as the ox, the construction ox, and the whole thing? And
I think they're taking applications.
Yeah, now we know where the construction guy from.
Then you can have another job.
Then I got another one, twirling the arrow over there at the
I think
tax
we all know
office.
now with the construction guy from Village People. We know that's his new job there.
There are specific, I think, height and build criteria to fit the suit, and I don't
There
read
are.
those.
Yeah, you
There are. You
okay.
might. I think it's 5'9".
I'm pretty sure I don't. I'm sure of it.
All right, very good. Thank you, James. All right, looking for commissioner member reports, and we'll start with Mike, since we're picking on Mike.
You already mentioned, one of my comments was noting in the dispatch, the Thrifty White Drug is closing up shop there, moving into further down the east side of town. And I'm hoping that that parking lot that is largely set unused on the corner of North 2nd and Kingwood, that it gets put to a more beneficial and compatible TN2 use by the new owners, the future owner or leasee or whatever, that make better use of that.
Flea market.
How about a driving school? They test motorcycles. and they drive around with
Exactly,
cycles.
or housing, or another neighborhood appropriate TN2 business operation, just not an empty field of pavement. I mean, I think Hardee's is another example that there's some real good space there that could be put to a better use than just
And Hardee's.
a parking lot with grass coming up
Multi-family
through
housing
it.
in the back.
Exactly.
All right.
But other than that, I do want to say that you all missed a really good nerdy webinar on data centers last month, so shame on you for not being there. Director Kronvik did an excellent job, I think, of presenting the city's ordinance and how this body and staff and council created a guiding ordinance for us, and it ticked off just about, if not all of the elements that some of the technical speakers were saying would be, ideal to have in a community's ordinance. We're right out there on the bloody front end of this stuff as an ordinance in the city, city ordinances dealing with large data centers. And so, my hat tip to James for the great job that he did, and not only at that presentation, but shepherding this through a process and through approval at City Council to give us something that really is a good product that others were very impressed with. So, with that.
Indeed, I'd second that. Dave, you got anything?
Yeah, I do. I never do, but this time I do.
Wow.
I know. It happened, my wife and I were going down to see my new granddaughter and drove by one of my rental properties. Trees were gone.
Whoa.
Brainerd Public Utilities cut them down. But now, you were probably on the board 20, 25 years ago, made me plant them there.
Not that long ago. I haven't been on this board that long.
But it was a couple there that they're planted on our property and stuff, but that's another story. But it got me to thinking of, we always call them the grass police. And, I've got some different properties in town that are vacant. I've owned one probably at least 15 years.
How many letters? From the city about mowing.
Oh, yeah. No, just one was about 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
Just random. 7 years later, I got an acreage and I'm supposed to mow.
Okay.
Talk about being angry. And then it was again, I think it was a couple years ago, we had a tree down in the middle of the forest.
Yeah.
James waved that one. It was before your time, and the other one. And then this summer, my son got a couple on another vacant lot, fully wooded, to mow. I say we need to at least address that as a complaint driven. There's no reason that an intern, or hopefully it's not a full-time staff, going and calling those in, because there are vacant lots. And the first one I went through, I drove around all the parks, and every city park has long grass in places, period. So I think it's necessary to keep up lawns and stuff. That's why when you brought up the one on the shoreline, it's like, God, I was gonna talk about that tonight. I don't think it's an issue, only if it's an issue to your neighbors or someone that has an issue with it.
So it has to be, you'd rather see it complaint driven.
I'd rather see it complaint driven.
James, is it complaint driven now?
We are primarily complaint driven. If somebody else called in a grass complaint, in and near that area, we do capture other ones. Or if we're driving, to a location for a building permit inspection, it may be caught at that. We're not driving up and down the street anymore, though.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up. But I don't know what to do about the trees. They're gone, so.
All right, there we go. Sad.
So, yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna get a part-time job measuring grass.
Wearing the ox suit. Exactly. Tad.
Data centers, I was gonna touch on that as well. I'm the council liaison to the Region 5 Development Commission, and at the last meeting, data centers came up as a topic that Region 5 is considering having their staff look into to see how and when these data centers are moving into communities, how the community can benefit, increase jobs, keep some of that wealth into the community to the degree possible. When that came up, I referenced our ordinance and the presentation that you mentioned James had been given, and I think they sat in on it because they all seem to know about it already. So I echo your comments, congratulating James on the job well done, and this group as well for the ordinance that was put together. So
Very good.
it's being referenced and utilized.
Excellent. Justin?
I'm gonna be the odd one out and not have anything tonight.
Not have anything tonight? There we go. I just looked at the completed ordinance and I see the cannabis one there. James, I know we have 2 licenses out. Any progress on the 2 licensees? Are they moving closer to anything happening?
Still working through the process.
Still working, and the process being with the state, is that
With the
correct?
state, correct,
Still
yep.
working through the state. All right, very good. I've got nothing else, and with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Here, a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. 45-minute meetings. We had